Welcome to this edition of Dynamic CIO Talk Show. This is the show where we get both Indian and international technology and business leaders to talk to us on various issues that are surrounding us, especially those of digital transformation, automation, technology transformation, and so on. So today we have the fortune of having with us Alessandro Ventura, who's the CIO and VP Analytics and Business Services for North America at Unilever. Alessandro is a business and technology leader with over 20 years of experience in delivering transformation programs, strategies, analytics, project management, business engagements, etc. He has an obsession to deliver positive business impact and in talent development and people skills. Now, before I invite him to have a conversation with me, with Dynamic CIO, let me just put a very short background to what has been happening in the industry. So both industries and society at large have witnessed many upheavals, ups and downs in these past 2 years, but we have also emerged stronger with the lessons that we have learned. Technology has certainly come handy in solving, if I may say so. I'm being very audacious, but if I can say so, almost all problems that we confronted during these testing times, except maybe for the emotional and empathy parts. So, Alessandro, thank you so much for accepting our request and joining us on this show. How are you doing?
Thank you, Rahul. Thank you for having me. I'm very good, thank you. Was looking forward to this conversation today.
Absolutely, we are all looking forward to this conversation. Let's straight away dive in, and to begin with, slightly off mark from the questions that we have submitted. So, how have you spent these 15 to 18 months? Those very critical months that we saw a very unprecedented lockdown and industry getting derailed, supply chains getting disrupted, people getting really sick, and suffering was of a very top order.
So personally, obviously I've been at home and spending a lot of time in my bedroom between working and sleeping. But yeah, I've been trying to focus personally on my well-being. So I picked up running as a bit of a hobby in the last 15 months or so, which I have to say I'm enjoying a lot. And I realized that it really helps me with my not only physical but my mental well-being. I think there's nothing like a good run in the morning that can help damping some of the stress that we have and we all endure in our lives, professionally and personally, and start with renewed energy the day. So that's how I've been.
Yeah, great. I think I can't agree more, because I also kind of follow a same routine or regimen. Early in the morning, going out gives you a lot of de-stressing, and especially when we are into mental health day or month, it is very important for knowledge workers to de-stress and keep mentally fit. So, okay, let me get back to work with you. Tell us something about some new business goals that you have set up for yourself, for organization, for IT organization, and how will they be driven with the help of people and technology?
So, I have to say, in the last 4 years since I've arrived in North America in my current role from Europe, from my previous role, we've implemented a lot of technologies. We are completely renewing the technological landscape of Unilever North America. And there was some element of repiping that we had to do with a lot of elements of advanced technology for digital transformation. But really, I spent the first 2 years more doing repiping because I was asked, let's get into this digital transformation. I'm like, well, first of all, we need to define what we want to be at the end of the digital transformation. And secondly, before we even embark on advanced technology, I realized immediately that there were some fundamental leakages in our previous technology, which were getting very old. In terms of obviously the technology that at the moment is front of mind to help us solving issues, especially as you said in the last 18 months with the supply chain crunch as a consequence of the pandemic, etc., etc. We've invested a lot in machine learnings. That's super critical to unlock time from the organization, and be more accurate when it comes to forecasting and prediction. So very, the foundation of what we've done with machine learning is fundamentally on forecasting, helping us to forecast and plan the baseline for our business at SKU level and customer level. So if you think about a business that sells about 3,500 SKUs and has about 150 customers, you work out the combination and see, the fundamental time unlock that we realize there. Not super easy to start with because there are some more predictable customers like Walmart, where sometimes doing the prediction is pretty simple. You possibly on certain SKU you wouldn't even need that level of sophistication. But even in those accounts, we've seen a good improvement in the order of 8 to 10% in terms of our quality of forecasting, down to very unpredictable accounts like Amazon and some other accounts. I have to say, not only Amazon, but the way the purchasing algorithms at Amazon work make it sometimes unpredictable especially on secondary SKU. Okay. And so, we focus very much on our ability to predict the future, because obviously our supply chain reaction time is as everybody else in the consumer goods. When you have to deal with physical infrastructure, you cannot dematerialize your supply chain. You have to deal with raw material. You have to deal with packaging. You have to deal with labor on the production line. You have to deal with distribution and transportation. And so there's nothing that can be dematerialized. Everything needs a certain level of, if you walk back, the process is quite long. You don't have the reaction time that immaterial or non-material business can have. And so rather than trying to compress that timeline, which we're also doing, we try to extend and to anticipate the future.
That's a very fascinating line of conversation and makes a few of my future questions a little redundant. And I'll pick up certain things that you just spoke about. For example, in the beginning, you accepted, and of course, I was about to ask that, such an old company will have a decent amount of technology debt and legacy technology. And it is very difficult, even though the intentions are there, it is very difficult for any organization of this scale, of this stature, to replace, rip and replace technology. It has to be well thought through. Maybe, these 14, 15, 18 odd months may have given you the leeway to hasten certain decisions and apply technology. For example, you just talked about machine learning. Now that's something which is the need of the hour for any organization to be able to make better decision makings. In your case, it was to shorten the supply chain cycles for better forecasting, and you very beautifully explained about how many SKUs are there and how many customers. Some are extremely predictable, like Walmart. Some are extremely non-predictable, like Amazon. So, if I may take a leaf from there and ask you a very straightforward question on machine learning. So, where did this idea come from, and what is the roadmap that you have kind of charted for your journey on artificial intelligence, and where will it where will it take you in the near future?
I mean, the idea was pretty simple. We had to get better at forecasting. As I said, especially given the supply chain crunch that we're all, part of and on the receiving end of, there's no possibility for a material supply chain like the one of a CPG to shorten processes. Yes, you can try to optimize, but there's no revolution there. It's hours and days, it's not weeks. And so the only possibility for us was to start the clock, to basically jump the clock and start earlier. And so if we need a 16-week cycle, which is not uncommon in my industry from a supply chain perspective, from the forecasting to the production distribution, then there's a possibility of anticipating the future and start earlier, so that technically speaking, you shorten up that cycle. So that's exactly what the thinking was at that time. It also comes together with within a major transformation that we're doing in what we call the customer experience side. Yes. We are looking holistically at anything that comes within the area of customer operation, all the way to delivery to customer and payment collection and deduction. So we've kind of zoomed in that process, and we first of all we've rehashed that process to make it much more future fit, because very often these are this is the boring part of the business. The fun part of the business is consumer facing or customer facing before all the way to JBP, to the joint business planning section. The execution part is the boring part. Okay, because you just have to get stuff done, and so probably that part of the business doesn't get the attention that it deserves, and doesn't get especially the processes don't get dusted off frequent enough. So what we've done in the last 2 years has been a deep dive in these processes, and we basically revolutionize all the technologies and the technology landscape that has to do with that part of the business. And so when we look at the process, and obviously you start with the customer interaction, how are we going to be able to deliver the right goods at the right time to our customers? And you work all the way back, and the first seed and the most important input in that process is exactly your ability to forecast the baseline. When I say forecast, I mean forecasting the baseline, not forecasting the total forecast, because that depends on too many other things, like promotional activities, like what we call the building blocks internally: store opening, store closure, listing, delisting, innovation, etc., etc. And so we really focus on that. So this was when the idea of using machine learning came from. That was our first attempt of, if you like, using artificial intelligence related technology. But ever since we've expanded a lot. So we're using artificial intelligence now in the process of deduction, which is a very tedious process where you have to, basically match the contract, the performance, and the evidence of the delivery of certain activity from a customer perspective. It was all done manual. It was outsourced, but it was taking months in order to claim back some of the deduction from our customers, and there were always literally millions of dollars stuck in disputes. Nothing too big, but when you have so many customers, 100K here, 100K there, etc., you soon get to the 2-3 million mark. And so we're using this technology now that is able to do the tedious part of the process using artificial intelligence and optical recognition, and still giving the final judgment to the operator, to the human operator. But at least the machine can collect all the information that the human operator needs to take that call. And so that's exactly what we've done. So we're using artificial intelligence to match contract, proof of performance, and proof of delivery together, and make sure that these evidences are given to the folks that need to make those calls. And then the final piece, which in my view is the most attractive, we built an artificial intelligence tool, basically. We call it Alex. Okay. And Alex is helping us in several ways. So the first way Alex is helping us is helping us to respond to our customers' inquiry. So we receive about 2,000 to 3,000 emails every day from our consumers. For many different reasons, and we recently acquired brands that do direct to consumer, like Schmidt's, like Sundial, some in our health and well-being business as well. And so sometimes their inquiry are purely transactional. Hey, where is my order? Hey, can I change my order? Hey, you don't have this product in stock. When is it going to come back? And so Alex is a deep learning system based on 5 different kind of parts of the brain, let's say, and is able through statistical algorithm to understand what the consumer is asking, but also given all the education that he underwent or it underwent, to suggest the operator's replies to the consumer. And so Alex is now helping us to respond to about 92 to 95% of our consumer inquiries. And this has cut down the time it takes us to do consumer inquiry response from about 6 minutes to about 30 seconds. Oh, wow. Because Alex doesn't directly respond. Alex suggests the response to the operator, and then the operator sometimes can change the response, in which case they also re-enter it into the brain of Alex so that Alex can learn for the following time. Or he can decide that that is a case where we want to send a coupon to our consumer because maybe they've been on the wrong side of a mistake from our side, et cetera, so we want to keep a nice relationship with our consumer, or simply they want to add a personal touch. So Alex does not respond directly to our consumers, but has helped us speeding up that response. In addition to that, Alex is now doing the same thing on our rating and reviews. So when you go on a website or on Google, et cetera, you got the rating and reviews, and you got comments from our consumers. So Alex is now has now picked it up. Again, very similar percentages compared to the emails. And then the last area where we've just started. So we believe we're going to get something like a product shaped up in the next few weeks. Is about product name and product description using on-trend words, so that we can naturally be first on search engine response, etc., etc. Because very often we tend to use an internally focused terminology that consumer don't use, and so we're now using the same infrastructure of that we created with Alex. We created another product called Omer, and so the family of our artificial intelligence assistant is growing, and is going to help us internally shaping up the perfect name and the perfect product description for all our e-commerce sold products.
Yeah, so this is really transformational. And how do you name these virtual assistants?
Oh, it's not me. It's not me. I play no part.
Who's naming them?
I have a director of artificial intelligence who is a very cultured person, and he also likes to play with names. It's never as dull as it sounds from the name. So he always comes up with great stories that he can speak about for hours. So, but I'm not responsible either for the development nor for the name.
No, that's fine. So, interesting for me to know and for our viewers to know, was it all developed internally in-house, or I mean, what kind of AI algorithms did you use? What platform did you use to develop these fascinating products?
So it's a mix. So 3.5 years ago, through an integration of a new company that we acquired, I had the opportunity to work with my director of artificial intelligence, and immediately decided that he could become a massive asset for Unilever. So I basically shielded him from the wider Unilever organization. So at the beginning, not even my team and my direct reports knew that this guy was working for us, because I was very wary of the natural reaction of the Unilever ecosystem. You can imagine information security here, programming standard there, and all the compliance. And so I said, okay, I want you to be completely shielded from the rest of Unilever. Otherwise, you're going to lose interest if we have to do things directly in the right way from any point of view. And so the agreement was that it was going to be based down in Florida, so out of the way, really. And I said to him that I was going to start integrating in the wider team only when he had a product that we could make available for our internal users. And so when Alex was took shape, then we started. Then I exposed him to the right people, because initially I was working only with 4 people in a small call center that we had down in Florida for one of our brands. Then we scaled him up to Unilever, so to the Unilever official call center. This is when actually I had to kind of unveil like the tada moment. That we had this director of artificial intelligence working for us. And then after we did that, we've migrated basically all this big brain behind Alex on our standard Unilever platform. So perfectly secure from any point of view, all done from a disaster recovery perspective, information backed up and everything else, but only now, or better, 9 months, 12 months ago. Before he was initially he was coding on a server that we bought for him, and we kept it offline in Florida. He was just doing his own thing. But this is one of my recommendations, especially for CIOs of big companies. they need to be smart on when is the right time to introduce these people to the wider ecosystem, because otherwise the immune system of a big company, of a large corporation, may crash the idea. Absolutely. And so that's what we did. So going back to your question, there's a mix of things that are done internally by him and a small team that he has now. There are other things that we're simply buying as product. So the deduction tool that I mentioned is something that we bought on software as a service license, and we integrated in the Unilever ecosystem. So there is no right or wrong approach. There are some stuff that are much more like mass, and you can find products anywhere. That probably is not worth spending time to develop internally. But I think that there are platforms internally, like Alex for us, that has this 5 neural networks and probably a couple more to come, which is probably much better to develop internally. It doesn't require to have a huge amount of resource. As I said, I only have one. Obviously, it depends on the time you want to use. If you want everything ready in 3 months, maybe you need a bit more people. But still, I believe having certain capabilities developed in-house is better than buying everything on the market.
Great. And, nothing related to your answer, but I am just wondering that, how conversations are so spontaneous when you're talking to someone who's not only a creator, but also is a very wise person. So I may just compliment you for driving this discussion into a very, very different domain and very useful one. So Alessandro, I will not keep you holding. I will just ask maybe a couple of more quick questions before we say goodbye to you. You couple of times you mentioned about certain revolutionizing certain technology aspects within Unilever. So one aspect that you spoke at length about was the machine learning and the whole experiment with the artificial intelligence and how the roadmap is chalked out for the future. What are some of the other key elements that you think are already revolutionized or transformed or are about to be?
So I think that from a technology perspective, we need to follow where the business wants to go, and sometimes not even follow, just point them into the right direction. And so I'm thinking about a great opportunity that we picked up during the COVID time with ice cream, because basically what we saw was a sustained consumption of ice cream during the COVID time, because obviously people were eating at home much more frequently. And let's face it, with the lockdown, anybody was looking for more opportunity to get a personal reward. And ice cream is an element of spreading joys. That's how we see it internally. And so we realized that there were obviously many food delivery platforms, or even more restaurants that were utilizing food delivery apps. They were desperate to include ice cream into their menu. Okay. And so we created what we call internally Ice Cream Now. Ice Cream Now is basically a way to use one of the food delivery platform and get ice cream on your couch in 30 minutes. And you can choose to have a night at home watching Netflix with friends or family, etc., and maybe you want couple of scoops of Ben & Jerry's or Talenti. And so we threw ourselves into the opportunity. So the beginning was entirely only commercial because we didn't have the platform in-house. And then within literally months, we started building the capability. So I think Where am I going is that I think that people should start looking at the digitization of the route to markets for their products. I think that's there's going to be and is already being on the receiving end of a major seismic shift, in my view. So that's something that I think anybody should start looking at. So how do we digitize our route to market? What does it mean? What other channel of distribution does that open? Does that open a direct relationship with some of the consumers, et cetera, et cetera? That's number one. Number two, which I think is related, is consumer becoming much more sophisticated. Even when it comes to buying, mayo and soap, which is what Unilever does, amongst many other things. Yep. And so understanding more and more about our consumer is becoming important so that we can tailor the offering, both from an innovation perspective, but also from a content perspective and from an assortment perspective. And so leveraging on first-party data, it's an absolute non-negotiable to be able to enter into the next decade with a future fit IT platform. So I think there's so many that we can pick up, but I would say the digitization of the go-to-market and getting to know more intimately our direct consumer are the most important technology, together with the artificial intelligence and analytics, which we haven't spoken about, but is super, super important.
Would you like to say something about that, since you have touched upon the topic?
Yeah. I think again, I start from a CPG. I look at things with the CPG lens, but I think this is applicable in many more markets. So, before it was easy to find growth. It was all about, one or two breakthrough innovation every year. But most importantly, having a good portfolio, well situated in the middle of the pack from a pricing perspective, from a proposition perspective, from a spacing and distribution perspective. Mm-hmm. Now, as I said, consumers are becoming much more sophisticated, and so there isn't one big pocket of growth that we can go in and source from. And so growth is becoming much more segmented, and we need to be laser focused in our interventions to be able to use and be positioned to get some of that growth. And so I think advanced analytics becomes super, super important. We are investing a lot in advanced analytics internally, both from a foundational perspective, data lake, most importantly, but also to be more and more tailored on together with our customers. We have a beautiful, great relationship with Target, where we do a lot of data exchange. Mm-hmm. And we created, within 5 months, we created an absolutely amazing tool that all the Target account team can use, where we can understand every day. We can look at new player coming in a certain category. We can associate them with our consumer and see, okay, who are the consumers that buy this new brand? Mm-hmm. What else do they buy in their shopping basket? And so in this way, we can become much more granular in our intervention, both in intervention in terms of maybe relaunching some of internal products, maybe on promotional activities, or maybe understanding if there are white spaces where we can dive in from an innovation perspective. This is giving us quite an amazing return. And so again, I think in a market that is segmented. I mean, everybody speaks about omni-channel, but omni-channel is there's very little about omni. I mean, the consumer journey, the shopper journey is becoming super fragmented, hyper-fragmented.
Absolutely.
And so unless you've got the analytics to be able to stitch together all these different touch points and understand exactly, the different touch points that the shopper went through and why is it making those decisions at the shelf or the virtual shelf, I think it's going to be pretty grim for big companies to grow going forward.
So, since you have ignited this conversation, I'm really keen to know, you spoke about data lakes. The biggest impediment to do anything with data analytics is the quality of data. And to maintain that at a saner level, there's a lot of technology churn that you have to make internally. For example, data lakes. I mean, that's a very sophisticated thing to have, but it's also, I mean, the journey to create a data lake in its proper way is very, very strenuous. I'm given to understand.
So we've been fairly lucky because there were two converging forces that kind of simplified our lives a little bit from a North America perspective. The first force was that we always have a very forward-looking data and analytics global team, and they really wanted to pivot out of data warehouses, very static, very expensive, and get into data lake. We have a very strong relationship with Microsoft, and so we started our data lake journey in 2017. And the second converging force was in North America, the supply chain team were the first kind of pilot for a data lake. And so when I arrived in 2017, I already found this activity kind of in flight. Okay. So that supply chain data lake for North America was the seed to then create a North America data lake, which we have. Not fully hydrated yet, and then that became the seed for the global data lake that we are becoming part of. There's a lot of operation behind that, making sure that not only the data getting into a data lake is accurate, is clean, etc., but from an operational perspective, you can imagine, you have tens and hundreds of different products being developed at any single time, leveraging on that data. And you need to make sure that nobody screws that up. And so you need to protect it. And we got our incidents as well when we had, some parts of the data lake being wiped out from badly executed scripts, etc. But, we've always been able to recover the data very quickly. So yes, it is a complex thing. Is different to manage from a data warehouse, which is much more static in nature. Yep. But I think definitely foundational capability for any attempts of digital transformation going forward.
Excellent, Alessandro. I'm greatly indebted to your original and very genuine thoughts. One parting question, which you may prefer to answer in bullet points. What are your top 2-3 priorities for 2022 as a CIO?
I think really expanding on the journey. I think three areas of expansion. So nothing new. So there's no pivot, but definitely expansion in data-driven marketing and usage of first-party data for to provide personalized experience to our consumer. The second priority, which is probably top priority from a business perspective, is to strengthen the infrastructure and foundation of our e-commerce. And when I say that, I really mean the technology infrastructure and all the capabilities that we have. And then the third there is really all in on advanced analytics for growth. Because we've used in the last few years a lot of advanced analytics for in order to run the business in supply chain and operation, which is great, and we need to continue to do that. But we really need to apply advanced analytics more and more on growth generating spaces.
Superb talking to you, and lots and lots of learnings that I see coming out of this conversation. And I personally want to thank you, and thanks Vati, my colleague, to have me do this conversation with you. I feel very, very lucky. Thank you very much, Alessandro, and all the best. All the best.
Thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much.